Welcome to our Biz Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Cuthbert, Creative Director at Baker Creative. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe so you can get notified when new content comes out. Please share this with anyone who could be inspired by it. Katie Danovich is a human resource senior practitioner with more than 10 years of accomplishment in all phases of employee experience, from talent acquisition to exit interviews. She served as an XPO Logistics, as a corporate recruiter, and Safelite Autoglass in several roles during her tenure, including talent project manager. Katie is a member of the Society of Human Resources Management and Human Resources Association of Central Ohio, and Talent Acquisition Leadership Keynotes. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, Katie. Thanks so much for joining us on our podcast. I really thought it's important for people to know our new HR specialist and share with everyone your background.
I'd love to do that. So I have been in the field of human resources for over 10 years. I love it. I have worked with large companies, small companies throughout Columbus and nationwide. I have global experience as well. I attended Franklin University and received my bachelor's degree in human resource management. I also have the SHRM SCP certification and some other smaller certifications in HR as well, including getting talent back to work and veterans at work, which I can certainly talk more about later. And then I also have strong experience in both talent acquisition and talent management. So I'm sure we'll talk more about all of those things, but that's kind of a brief highlight of my career so far.
Well, thanks for sharing. So being in the business of HR in the last few years, how do you think it's changed? What has shifted in that space?
Yeah, I think a lot has changed in human resources recently, kind of in the past decade, but some companies are, slower or faster to come on to these changes than others. But really, it's become a lot more progressive. It's become a lot more of a business partner model than it was previously, where I think the structure of HR was more administrative, more payroll, more reactive to employee relations concerns, things like that, recruiting. Now we see everything a little bit more proactive. So we see recruitment teams being involved in things like succession planning. What is the business going to look like in the future, and how can we be prepared for that? We see human resources having a seat at the table is one of the big things that you hear. So, we have executive presence in human resources now, where that was not the case in the past a lot of the time. So really, I think what we're seeing is, HR is now being seen as a real, true business partner, and how can the people strategies move the business forward, since after all, the people really are the biggest asset to the company.
Not to mention, it really does dictate the actual economic value of a company. If you don't have good talent, if you don't have good people, you can't get work done. I mean, it's just the bottom line.
Yeah. And you hear a lot about the employee experience. And if the employees are not having a great experience, then your customers probably are not either. So a lot of companies are recognizing that and taking the time to invest in those types of initiatives.
So with all the variety type of projects you have worked on in the past, what do you think was your favorite and why?
Wow, there are so many that I could choose from. I've worked on so many fun things that, I'm kind of an HR nerd, if you will. I had the opportunity to open a new call center at one of my positions, and I really didn't have any experience working with call centers before that. So it was kind of an opportunity to dive into something new that I never did before. It was a little bit scary, but I just kind of gave it my all. And I really got to be involved in every facet of that. So the workforce planning element. It was in an area of the country that I had never worked in. So I got to investigate, okay, what is the talent profile like in this area? What are people really looking for in this part of the country? Really just kind of investigated everything. And then the training planning, training people how to interview, everything. I mean, I just really dove into the whole thing. It was a great opportunity to just really kind of own a project and dive into all of the different aspects of what goes into a large scale opening of a center. So I really enjoyed that. I think it taught me a lot, and it really enabled me to kind of take on projects, if you will. So I think I'll say that was my favorite so far.
With all the type of different variety of projects you've worked at and different companies that you've had experience in industries as well, is there one component that really makes you passionate about HR? Is it helping people? Is it driving change in a community? How do you see that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. So driving change, absolutely. I love to partner with leaders and look at, okay, what is a problem that we need to solve, and making that actually happen. So I love seeing the results. I think that is great. And along the way, we help a lot of people. So really unleashing the talent that exists within the company. I think you'd be surprised at what is possible, and then seeing those results. So, everything from that initial call, okay, we have this hairy beast of a problem. What are we going to do? Cutting through the noise and confusion that may or may not exist there, and then getting to that result. I think, showing leaders what's possible with their workforce is something that really sparks me.
Very much aligns with what we're doing at Baker Creative, and really just trying to drive profound difference in the communities that we serve and the brands that we help improve and be better. And it all really does reflect not only in the bottom line, but also in the loyalty and the engagement that customers are reflecting, and what their feedback is about that customer experience, whether it's an HR capacity or whether it's going to be from a consumer standpoint. Why do you think retention matters so much in HR?
Wow. Well, there's a variety of reasons. One, I think it goes back to that, customer experience. When you have employee experience going well, then customer experience goes well too. And then there's the obvious reason of cost. Retention, when you have high retention or high turnover, that is extremely costly to a company. And there's a lot of different estimates of how much that costs, but no matter which model you look at, it's all very costly. So if you're looking at keeping your employees, that is a huge cost savings to a company. So, that's one thing, but it also helps with your reputation, because no matter what happens with the talent market and the labor shortage and all of those things, even if that improves over time, we still have social media, we still have Glassdoor, we still have a lot of people being very vocal about what their experience is. And of course, we want that to be positive for the company, because, that just reflects. So that will always be a big deal, I think, no matter what is going on with the market.
So do you think that's part of the component on why we offer modern HR, is some of the offerings to our customer?
I think so. And I think that companies are starting to realize, if you can keep your eye on the long-term strategy and, how we can pull together and work with employees on some of the long-term goals, and let them kind of have a say and be involved. I think it really does help in the long term. So you can get some short-term wins with maybe some of the old school philosophy, certainly, but in the long term, some of these strategies are absolutely what will get you a lot more success in your business.
What is your perspective on the Great Resignation?
The Great Resignation has been kind of going on, I would say, probably since the pandemic started. I think a lot of people are realizing what they want from their jobs, and Some of that is, in fact, compensation. They want more compensation, some of them, but beyond that, it's about, you know, some of the remote work. We see people that want to work remotely and they do not want to go back to the office, and they will um, look for that and they can find it. So, really understanding, I think, what your specific employee group wants and how to give it to them so that you can have that retention is really what's important. And every company is going to be a little bit different. Is it remote work? Is it compensation? Is it a certain benefit or something that they value? What is it exactly that they want is really important. And a lot of that usually comes back to remote work or flexibility or, something like that. But employees are finding, hey, there's a lot of jobs out there and I can kind of have my choice of position. And so I'm going to look for what I personally want. And, I think a lot of people have realized that there is more to life than just work. And so I'm going to select the job that gives me the flexibility that I'm looking for.
So at Baker Creative, we're a big proponent of culture, which kind of nods to what you're saying. And overall, what do you think people are looking for when it comes to a culture? Because people do really look at, it's not only an interview for them, but it's an interview for the brand itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of culture, people want to be trusted to do their work. They don't want to be micromanaged. I think that is huge and probably the first thing that will make someone consider leaving their job if they feel micromanaged. The other thing is collaboration, which can be difficult to achieve in a remote workforce. So that's important as well. In addition to that, I think people are looking for just feeling good at work. They want to have a positive, upbeat feeling. Again, trust, huge. But in addition to that, they want to feel like they're a part of something. So do I believe in what I'm doing? And if the answer to that is no, then they may very well be looking elsewhere.
And I think different generations value that trust and perceive that trust in a very different capacity. I think that and if a corporate can't really align with that from a culture perspective, there's a missed opportunity for retention.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
So, HR can be very overwhelming with compliance and staffing and employee relations. What is your approach to that?
So what I do in those situations is I think about what I know and what I can help with. And then I help to distill it down into something that's easy and easy to execute.
Right, because we don't want people to be overwhelmed by HR and about the barriers that they come across. We want to help them navigate that process. And that's why we have different ways of engaging and different ways to help the C-suite and give that guidance, because sometimes some staffers are a little more complicated than others. Some situations don't apply to everyone. And helping retain that top C-suite is pretty important in the whole navigating of the issue. So, which relates to D&I, what is your take on the diversity and inclusion aspect of HR?
Yeah, I think it's a very hot topic right now. You hear a lot about really DEIB, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Huge topic right now, but it's very different for every company. Your approach might be extremely different to something that sounds like it might be the same, but it's really not. So, looking at what gaps might exist, and then again, executing, making it easy for your specific company, which is something that we can do. Again, it's all about, making it easy, looking at what works for your unique company. So
how does someone recognize as a company that they have a DEI issue, a DEIB issue?
I think it's a variety of different ways. I think the biggest thing is to listen to your employees. And so what voice do they have? Sometimes they're not comfortable speaking up. A lot of companies have hotlines that employees can call that are anonymous. A lot of that will come through those. If you do not have one of those, I think it's definitely something to look into, or if you have surveys, a lot of that information will come through there. But again, if you don't have those things, then that is something that we can help with to give them a voice and again, see what they're saying. And even through those channels, sometimes employees still are not comfortable speaking up. So it's important to hear what they're saying and find some sort of anonymous type of survey method so that you can hear from them what they're saying and how they really feel.
And that's why the assessments matter. And that's why, offering solutions that, are comprehensive to give employers that snapshot of what's really happening. Because, oftentimes people aren't going to disclose they feel uncomfortable. They're not going to tell their boss. They want to keep their jobs. They may not even understand the training if they're from another country and just kind of follow along with the rest, because, they might need that job to send money back home or, to just make ends meet. So there's a variety of different factors on why people don't disclose, but really having a third party assessment really gives that depth to having that feedback and having an outside perspective. Even if someone does have an existing internal HR department, gives more tools for that department to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely true. And then from a recruiting perspective too, you want to make sure that your workforce kind of matches up with the community that you work in. So there's some data analysis that can happen there too. So if your workforce demographic doesn't quite match up with the community that you're in, that's another quick thing that you can look at. But again, sometimes that data is a little bit hard to find, and a third party can really help to look at those types of things.
So I know that you do some analysis of different personality types and really try to take a really close look at different candidates and employees. Can you kind of share the value of that?
Yeah, I think for me anyway, I think the biggest win in that area is getting to know oneself and how you work as well. So I always advocate getting to know your own personality, and my own background in that is that I was presented with a personality assessment, I would say about midway through my HR career, and I wasn't sure what to expect from it. And I learned so much about myself. This was a DISC personality assessment, just to give you that background as well. And I just did not realize certain things about my own self. And it gave me so much insight and helped me understand my own communication style. Then it also helped me to understand my team's communication style and how I interacted with them. That can do so much for a team that I personally did not even realize. And so I have been advocating for that and similar personality assessments throughout my career. And then I think for recruiting, certainly I wouldn't hire someone based solely on their personality. I don't really condone that. But I think when you hire someone, it makes a lot of sense to understand how the two of you may interact. So if you're a leader and you have hired someone, getting to know how the two of you will interact with each other is really helpful. So if one of you is more introverted and prefers, let me just email about this issue, the face-to-face scares me a little bit, that might be okay. You just need to kind of find your balance with each other. And if you can find that more quickly through assessments, then you can be that much more productive. And I think that's great.
Cool. Well, I thank you so much for your time, and your insights were invaluable, and thanks for sharing. And we look forward to keep going on.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe so you can get notified when new content comes out. Please share this with anyone who could be inspired by it. And feel free to post any questions so we can be inspired by new content. Thanks for listening. If you're interested in learning more, visit our website at bakercreative.co.